Hello, Mr. Gheorghiu.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good. We have here a game against the Soviet champion at the time, Stein.
Yeah, he was, at that time, he was the Soviet champion. He was a very strong grandmaster and had a lot of successes. He won a lot of big tournaments, and he was the big favorite for this super tournament in Moscow. He
Especially
won
because
finally, yeah, because well,
was
he
playing
was
home.
yeah, he was the Soviet champion, and he was well known, of course. But the tournament was also very, very strong. A lot of Soviets played, and
A lot of spectators, you
a
said
lot of
also.
spectators. Well, it was a big fight finally, but at the end, Stein could win the tournament. It was another big success for him. So therefore, our game was important theoretically, and finally, the result was considered to be
A surprise?
quite a big surprise. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good surprise
For us, yes.
for us.
Yeah.
So
So
D4.
I played d4. He played knight f6. He was one of the biggest specialists for King's Indian, for black. I mean, and as usual, I played my Zemish. I like my
Your
my
weapon
system.
against your system against
it was
the
one of the best systems, not only mine, but all over the world. It's very dangerous against King's Indian for black. I mean, you can lose a lot of games with black if if you don't play
Zenish attack.
very, very well, or if you make a small mistakes or something, and then you have a good chance to lose against the Zemish. Yeah.
Zemish, okay.
Yes. f3 castle. Well, let's say, for instance, just a moment here.
Yes.
When instead of castle,
Yes.
yeah, here instead of castle. In our last game in Ziegen in 1970, Bobby Fischer played against me in our last encounter together. The move c5, which is a little bit surprising, but it's not bad at all. I mean, white can have a small advantage here by taking immediately in c5. He has to take. You trade queens and play bishop e3 check. Bishop e3. He has to move the knight from f6 to d7. And then you have time to play knight g2 and castle. And you have a small advantage. White is a little bit better, but it's very, very difficult to win. I mean, but a very small advantage for white. That was my game against Bobby in 1970 in Ziegen. So coming back to our game, he played normally, of course, f3 castle, bishop e3, and now b6. b6 is one of the normal moves against this line. I mean, instead of b6, black can also play e5, which is the whole variation, the main variation, let's say, for King's Indian, or knight c6, or knight bd7, or c6, or a6. A lot of possibilities. b6 was very modern in that time. Yeah. So bishop d3, and now he played bishop b7. Let's say again here, c5 is a big mistake. Instead of bishop b7, already c5 is a big mistake because after e5 immediately, black is lost. I mean, he has to take in e5, you take in e5, he moves the knight, and bishop e4, and you lose a piece at least. Bishop, but of course, it's a very big mistake. It's well known. So he played normally bishop b7. The alternative is also a6 instead of bishop b7. It's also possible. But okay, bishop b7. The main variation, knight g2, c5. And now white closes the center by playing d5. And we have the main variation from this line. d5, e6, castle, and knight bd7. No.
So he tries to open the center.
He tries to open the center or play later on knight from d7 to e5. I mean, it's possible to trade the bishop from d3 against the knight from d7. In some variations, it's also possible. Yeah. So
but
now,
the white shouldn't allow this, right?
Well, sometimes he can allow. I played here the move bishop g5, probably the most active move in that line. And white tries to control all the squares after bishop g5 by playing bishop g5, and later on f4, if possible, you control completely the central squares, and then it's okay. White is a little bit better. And now after bishop g5, if he wants to complicate, the game, he has to play here immediately if he wants to, knight e5. And after f4, knight takes d3, queen takes d3. White is better, but it's very unclear. Yeah. White is better because has more space. Even if black has two bishops, I mean pair of bishops, but has more space and some attacking chances for white. I consider that white is better in that line. Yeah. Okay, so he played bishop a6. This is possible also, is one of the variations to try to complicate, again the game, the position. And now I played queen a4 is a very good move because you attack with tempo the bishop from a6 and you have to protect the bishop and lose, one tempo by playing queen c8. If you don't go back to b7, you have to play queen c8. Okay, queen c8. And now knight g3, and we have this line, which is, again, a little bit better for white in all variations. So he played queen b7. Instead of queen b7, he could play e takes d5 or h6. Two other possibilities, Yeah, taking or h6. Okay, queen b7. And now we have our position, f4. Well, after f4, now it's clear that white is in all kind of positions, white is better because, as I told you before, white controls the central squares, and has more space. And you look at the position, the queen from a4 and the knight from c3 control both the square b5, but are better placed than the black pieces from b7 and from a6. They are a little bit artificial like this, for black.
Yeah.
So, okay, after f4, he has to try to complicate again, to try to find some moves to have some counter chances, here. So now e5. e5 is very good because you try to play immediately against the weak square from d6. You give a pawn for a moment and you come very quickly with a piece in e4. From e4, you control, again, all the central squares, and you have very good attacking chances.
With a knight, you mean?
With a knight, yeah.
A
Of
knight,
course.
and then
He
to
has
come
to
here.
take, of course, in e5, no? And now after knight e4, he has to decide what to do. I mean, if he doesn't take to e4, it's already very dangerous because the threat is immediate, knight d6, and you are lost completely, with black, yeah. So you have to take in e4, it's almost forced, yeah. And now I took with the bishop. It was also possible to take with the knight, and the forced move afterwards was to play b5. White is also better, even there. But I thought that white is much better here. I mean, I was sure that black is almost losing the game already
If
in
you
this
play
kind of position.
d5, right? d6. Or
No, now you threaten to take in e6 or to play d6, and he's lost immediately, yeah. So the only move here is to play the move he played in our game, queen c8, of course, to go back with the queen. Now you take in e6, everything is forced. Now, if he takes with the rook, if he could take with the rook in e6, now after the move f5, the game is crashing for black. I mean, he's almost losing without fight here. Yeah, they are both threats after rook d8, for instance. You can play f6 and the bishop from g7 has to go to h8 and this has spectator there. Or you can play also immediately knight d5, a very strong initiative for white. But this is terrible. I mean, f6, bishop h8 and knight d5 is almost lost now. So he has to take back with the pawn. Okay. And now bishop c6. And now what to do with black? If you look at the position, black has no moves. The only move here, a very good one, I mean, probably his contribution to this variation is b5. And now after b5, the game is not so clear, It's better for white, but not completely clear. I mean, not completely winning.
So suddenly it's no longer so crushing.
It's much better for white, but you have to demonstrate how you win, how you can win, So you have to take in b5, of course, only with the pawn. Now bishop b7, yes, and now knight e4. Now after knight e4, again, it seems that black is completely lost, because the immediate threat is knight d6. But black has to move here, and the next moves are forced again, Knight b6. Now you have to take in a7 if you want something, of course, no? And now he has time to take in c6. Now the game is forced. Queen knight d6, of course. Now queen a8, the only move, but very good. Yeah, queen a8, knight takes, queen takes b6, and now bishop takes g2. And it seems that all of a sudden black has some counterplay here, because the dangerous diagonal, the bishop in g2 is also very unpleasant, the first glance for white, so the game continuation is forced again. Knight takes e8, bishop takes f1, queen takes e6 check. This is very important, the most important move of the game. Take with check, king h8, of course, and rook takes f1. Okay, so he has to take only with the rook, of course. If he trades queens, he's immediately winning for white. So
So here,
with the
if he
rook,
takes,
he took with the. If he takes with the queen in e8, you have time to take in e8. He must take back, and now you have a4, and you have two connected pawns, and you win immediately with the white. So he took with the rook, queen c6. Again, everything is forced. I mean, he took in f4 to play a little bit with the bishop from g7. Yeah. Now bishop takes back, yeah, and now c4. I mean, to give some air to the queen from a8. Now probably the game is still winning in any kind of position, but the most, the best move is the move I made in the game, which is the most active. So I played rook d1, controlling all the squares again. And you have also some threats, later on. Now,
you mean control this square from here?
Now if you move, for instance, in this position with white, you want to take immediately in a8 and b6, and that wins immediately in one move. So the only way for him to continue a little bit is to give check in a7 and then move the queen somewhere. So b6, queen e7. Yeah, all right. And now I played b7. Now the threat again, b8, queen. Yeah. So bishop d4 check, king h1. You see, everything is controlled. The king is a little bit, it seems a little bit in a dangerous situation, but it's only an impression. It's okay for white. So now the only move, bishop a7, and now you attack the queen, and the rook from e8 is also under attack. Bishop g7, g5. And now I think he resigned. No, he resigned. But why? I mean, it's very easy to see. The only move is queen f7, no? Not to give mate immediately. Queen f7. Now, simply queen takes e8, check. Queen takes e8 and rook d8. Rook d8. He has to take in d8. Bishop takes. Now, again, the only move, bishop b8. No? Otherwise, yes. Bishop c7. And now bishop h4 with the threat bishop g3 and wins at least a piece. And you have also the a pawn, which is free, completely winning. And here he resigned. Well, the game is very good and very interesting and very important theoretically. For this line, the game was excellent. Against the King's Indian. And again, I told you before, considered one of the biggest surprises of the tournament, of course, because of his
performance.
Performances, yes.
Nice.